Welcome to the AA Podcast, our little corner of the web where we are not afraid to discuss tough questions like,
when did nutrition, health, movement, and stress management become alternative medicine?
Where we embrace challenges in all aspects of life to become healthier and stronger versions of ourselves.
And where food and movement are the best kinds of medicine, and cooking meals at home is a revolutionary act.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the AA Podcast. This is Ashley Olson.
And I'm Andrea Green.
We are recording in the evening, and this is not my prime time. This is Andrea's prime time. This is not Ashley's prime time.
Andrea's ready to party.
Yeah,
Ashley is
I
not.
had no idea what I was about to say when I introduced this episode. All right. Well, and I just realized I have the wrong headphones in. We are fine. We are not changing it.
You sound good.
Okay. We are not messing with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get started in today's episode, which is all about sleep, which I am so excited to be doing here in the next 45 minutes.
We're like, it's like 7 p.m. We're eating into your bedtime.
I know. Let's share our weekly Bible verse, which today mine is coming from Psalms 4:8. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety.
And mine is Ephesians 5:14. For anything becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.
Love it.
Yours is go to sleep, and mine is wake up.
Seems very appropriate. Seems very appropriate. Oh my gosh. So, all right, Andrea. So this is a kind of a touchy subject, I feel, because more people than we probably realize struggle. And maybe some people don't realize they're not necessarily getting quality sleep. They might be asleep all night, but maybe it's not quality sleep. And so they're running on caffeine and fumes all day, and then they crash at night and then do it all over again.
Right.
So kind of, what would you say are some of the most common sleep problems?
Well,
when do you start seeing them happen, like age-wise?
Yeah. So there, and this is kind of a loaded question because like we've got the physiological response, right? That we've got the I can't sleep. But there are 500 reasons why you can't sleep.
Right.
So we will not touch on every single possible reason. In fact, I don't go deeply into hormones here tonight on this particular episode because that's just a whole nother can of worms. But I will tell you that perimenopausal state, menopausal state, that is definitely a time where hormones can wreck your world and they can wreck your sleep too. So that is something to pay attention to. And if you feel like if you've got other symptoms of perimenopause, like you just feel stupid. I know about this. I am intimately familiar with this part of perimenopause. And so, yeah, if your cycles are becoming erratic, even closer together, that kind of stuff, go see your GP and have them run a hormone panel. Let's see where you are. And that can often, like a little goose of progesterone, can often get you back sleeping much, much better. So that's all I want to say about hormones tonight. But yeah, so there are typically problems with falling asleep and staying asleep. So I want to kind of put those together, and we always make a distinction in clinical practice, like when someone comes in and they say, oh, I've got problems with insomnia, we always ask, is it falling asleep or is it staying asleep that is the issue? And the reason for that is because we can kind of pare down what the problem could be. I will say that falling asleep and staying asleep can both be affected by things like stress. That's huge. And not just because your mind is racing, but also because of the stress hormones that are created as a result of your body trying to deal with excessive amounts of stress. And so that's things like catecholamines, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine, or more commonly known as adrenaline or noradrenaline. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those later on. But adrenaline, noradrenaline, and then if you've been in a stress state for a very long time, your body creates elevated levels of cortisol.
Mhm.
And so cortisol creates, this dance that cortisol does with melatonin is very intricately timed. And if you are, splashing about in very excess levels of cortisol, then your melatonin can't come out to play when it's time to go to sleep. So that, stress response becomes a huge problem. Also, stimulants. And I really wanted to hit on this because caffeine is, it is my life's blood. I I cannot, I will not function without it. I
Uh,
can't say I cannot, but I won't function
it would
without
be
it.
your second island food. Cod liver
Oh,
first and
yes,
then
cod
coffee.
liver oil and coffee. That could just like keep me going for several years. Um, Coffee, yeah, caffeine as you age, you stop being able to metabolize things as quickly because your kidney function, your liver function, all of those begin to decline as you age. And so I've got patients that are like, I just drink a half a cup, or it's half and half decaf and caffeinated. I only have 1 cup, and I have it at 8 a.m. and I can't sleep. And so I understand, like when I'm trying to pry caffeine out of their very tired, cold fingers, people really want to hang on to that. But here's the reality: as we age, it can take up to 24 hours to metabolize caffeine and sometimes longer. So the
Wow.
half life of that drug actually gets longer and longer and longer. So it can continue to circulate for hours and hours and hours, exerting that stimulating effect as we age. So, yeah, caffeine, that's like the last hill that I'll die on. And so if I start having problems sleeping, then I'm going to be really bummed. So right now, as it is, I still can, drink lots of coffee. It's 7 p.m. I'll probably have another cup of coffee before I go to bed. Um, but I drink coffee all day, every day, and I sleep like a baby. Um, yeah. So, let's see. So that's falling asleep, staying asleep. What out of the two of those, what do you find with your clients you're seeing more of?
I see more of fall being able to fall asleep
Mm.
and then waking up at like between the magic hour of
Uh,
2 and 4, which
okay.
I see we're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
we are gonna talk.
Yeah.
I have a trick.
Oh.
Okay, so
And
uh-huh.
yeah, the person I sleep next to
Oh,
is that. Yeah.
okay, I have a trick for him too. Um,
We'll see if he
all
listens.
right. Yeah, he never listens to me. He's gotta hear it from somebody else.
Well,
All right,
he's not going to
so
listen to me,
no,
so
he's definitely not listening to you. I'm just the
no.
second person he doesn't
Yeah.
listen to. All right,
We
so the
love you,
next I know.
Christian.
KO, we love you.
Yeah.
All right. So waking too early and can't fall back to sleep, that kind of speaks to those magic hours. Like if you're waking at 3 a.m. and I can't get back to sleep, that's an issue too. But if you're waking before midnight and you can't get back to sleep, that's another kind of another animal entirely. Also, waking to urinate. Sometimes people think they're waking up to urinate, but really, the body is creating concentrated urine all night. And unless you're drinking copious amounts of fluid, like I am at at 10 o'clock at night because I'm doing 75 hard. So sometimes I'll drink over a quarter of a gallon right before I go to bed because that's what I have to do because I'm not done drinking my water yet. Then I know I'm getting up to pee. Um, but short of that,
Can we talk about what copious would maybe be? Is that like, and we had a water
well,
hydration episode and we said,
yeah,
I like our magic number was kind of 90 ounces,
mm, yeah,
like a 90 ounce recommendation. But would you
yeah.
say probably anything over that would be copious?
I'm talking like if you're drinking large volumes right before bed.
Okay.
That's really what I'm talking about. You can drink the copious amounts of water, which I feel like I'm drinking. I feel like a gallon is a copious amount of water. That's ridiculous, but I'm doing it. But usually I try to space it out better throughout the day.
Yeah.
I think honestly, and I think I mentioned this in the water episode, I believe a gallon a day is a supra physiological level. It is not needed. I think it's there for the discipline of it, and I'm doing it, but I don't like it. So, um, anyway, when I say copious before bed, I'm talking about really anything over about a cup right before you go to bed.
Oh, okay.
That can really that can wake you up. But most people don't do that, right? Like most people kind of self cut off all drinking a lot of water before about, they'll cut off about 8 or 9 p.m. and then go to
Right.
bed at 10 or 11, which is fine. So I think most of the time what people are doing is they're waking up and their body's creating urine all night. Um, and when they wake up because of something else, then they think, "Oh, yeah, I have to
Like,
pee too."
yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're waking up because they have to urinate. I think they're waking up from something else and then realize that, "Oh, I guess I have to go."
Mm-hmm.
So that is always a possibility too. So I try to ask enough questions to kind of get to the bottom of that, but we can definitely fluid restrict after 8 or 9 p.m. Just to see really what it is. So then there's this big kind of catch-all, um, and that is waking, the waking not rested or refreshed.
Mm.
Now, this is the one that I get a little concerned about, and I throw this into the basket with snoring.
Mm.
So that is also a common sleep problem is snoring. But waking not refreshed, this could be from apnea, and snoring can be from apnea. And so every single patient that presents with stories of, no, I get 8, 9 hours at night and then I wake up and I just feel like I haven't slept at all, or I say, "Well, okay, so does your wife say you snore? Does your husband say you snore?" "No, they haven't mentioned anything," or "Yes, they say that I snore like a freight train." Um, and so then we'll dive into that a little bit more. But if someone snores, chances are really good I'm going to order probably an in-home sleep study just to see if they're having apneic episodes. So this is episodes where you literally stop breathing. And this is having sleep apnea is related to increased all-cause mortality. So it's a really serious deal. It's related to anemia, believe it or not. It's related to very, very poor cognition and functioning the next day. So it's got to be treated. And so if somebody is having significant apnea, really the only thing that is a solution for that is a CPAP machine, or sometimes people can get an appliance created. Not everybody is a good candidate for this. In fact, I'd say most aren't. But sometimes, if you have a very mild apnea, they can get an appliance created that fits inside their mouths that hold their tongue down so it's not falling back into the airway as they sleep.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, one of the and typically apneic episodes are often caused by overweight, um, just by a mass of tissue. The neck circumference gets bigger as we gain weight, and so just having that heavy, massive tissue around the airway, it disrupts sleep and can cause apnea. So weight loss is often a prescribed solution, but in the near term, CPAP is really the way to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. So now let's talk. I guess a little bit more about the magic 2 to 4, that waking too early reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's and I wanna tie this back to stress response. So, we talked a little bit about adrenaline and noradrenaline already, but I wanna, dive in a little deeper to why you could be waking. So, this could be due to adrenaline. Let's go into hormones. I said I was done talking about it, but let me spend another 30 seconds talking about it here. So, when you're in the throes of like some, estrogenic issues and you're having hot flashes, vasomotor symptoms, waking up in a pool of sweat, that kind of thing. Um, the theory goes, and I think it's a really good theory. This was proposed in a lecture that I heard probably 6 years ago, um, by a woman who's been an OB-GYN for, oh gosh, I don't know, probably longer than my whole professional career. Um, but she had come to the conclusion that vasomotor symptoms were really propagated by catecholamine response, and that is your adrenaline response. And so adrenaline occurs when the body jumps into fight or flight, like this, oh my gosh, we're going to die. And
Mm-hmm.
so it pumps out adrenaline. And often a hot flash will follow if a woman is in that kind of time of life.
Yeah.
And so that can certainly happen at night, and that will definitely wake you up. But let's say that you don't have these hormonal issues, but you still have what would cause adrenaline to come shrieking out of your your adrenals at 2 3 in the morning. Well, one of the things can be blood sugar levels. So if you've got really labile blood sugar, meaning it goes up, it goes way down, it goes way up, it goes way down, we're not going to catch that on a hemoglobin A1C blood test, because that just gives us an average of what your blood glucose level was over the last 90 days. So if you're like going way, way high and then way, way low and then way, way high and way, way low, then the average might look kind of normal,
Mm.
but that won't tell us what your highs and lows are. And many, many people have labile blood glucose. And so if your blood glucose goes way high, the body doesn't necessarily think it's dying. That does not elicit this huge all hands on deck response. But I'll tell you what does: low blood sugar. That glucose plummets, and your body will come shrieking to life to
It's
try
like
to
fight or
save you.
flight.
Yes, absolutely. And so adrenaline will pour out of your adrenals sitting atop your kidneys. Noradrenaline will come running out. And you better believe you're going to wake up. So one trick that I have people do, and we're not to solutions yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and put this one in here.
She never follows rules.
I
Just
know. I know.
yeah.
My outlines are trash. So just, yeah, I'm off the rails. Um, so one trick that I have patients try, if they're waking and I suspect that they might have some blood sugar lability, then I'll have them put like some apple juice, about 2 to 4 ounces. I'll have them put it on the bedside table, and then when they wake up, drink the juice and then go back to sleep. And very often that is a difference maker, because you introduce some high sugar fruit juice into the body when it is thinks it's dying because the blood glucose is so low. So you are propping up the blood sugar and you can go back to sleep. And often
Mm.
they can just fall right back to sleep. So that's a little trick you can try. Um, and then let's see. Uh, is that it for problems? Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Um, for problems, oh, like yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I
Oh, I just
I
thought of one more.
oh yeah,
One more. I how many times have you heard this? At night, I'm so tired, but I can't turn my mind off. It's like I'm
yes,
wired and tired. I hear that all the
yes,
time. I'm
uh,
wired and tired.
yes.
So that is often in those folks, they're often type A or people under a lot of stress. They have stressful jobs, they've got stressful situations at home. They have been under a chronic load for a while. So
Mm,
if I was to test their cortisol curve, so cortisol is the awakening hormone. Um, and it's been very demonized because obviously if it's chronically elevated, that's not good for us, but we will die without it. So it's very much a Goldilocks hormone or steroid. Um, and we have to have it. And it is our awakening hormone. So if cortisol is high in the body, melatonin will be low. They suppress each other. So, cortisol is supposed to be high at its very tip top peak at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
mm,
That's when cortisol is supposed to be at its peak. That's why if I'm drawing a waking cortisol, I try to tell people, hey, get this as close to 8 o'clock as you can get, because that will tell us what the true peak is. Now, in these folks that are wired and tired, like they're exhausted through the day, and then the night comes and they would love to sleep, but they just can't. Like their brains are running and just won't shut off. So often what you'll see with their cortisol curve supposed to be at a peak at 8, and then throughout the day, like basically till 8 or 9 p.m., it's supposed to be falling. But with these folks, sometimes you'll see a reverse cortisol curve where it'll start out low and then it'll get high at night. So guess what this is doing to melatonin?
mm,
Well, melatonin it is like out to play in the morning and in the daytime in these folks because cortisol is low. So melatonin is high. And then as it gets down to bedtime, their cortisol is high. And so their melatonin is just absolutely squashed. So these folks, we need to do a lot of work with with
mm.
cortisol. We need to reverse the curve, and that happens with a lot of stress management and lifestyle changes. Honestly,
Yeah,
um, so yeah, that's another problem that I see.
and I see that one as well, and it is with my usually higher demanding clients, like their job in life
Yeah.
is way more
Hmm.
demanding, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times these folks, they either naturally are type A or they've been shoved into kind of a type A box and they have to be type A in order to just kind of survive their lives. So, yeah, it's that real like hard driving kind of personality often. Um, so now I want to shift our discussion to talking about conventional solutions. Like what do we use conventionally to treat sleep issues? And I just want to go through these just so that people are aware of what's available conventionally. Um, and I don't think it's much. Basically, we have drugs and CPAP, um, and some sleep hygiene that everybody does. So anyway, the first one is the self-medicating that is done with alcohol and marijuana. So we
Hmm.
see a lot of this. Alcohol actually robs you of good quality sleep. There's a lot that happens during sleep. There's a lot of housekeeping activities that your brain engages in. There's also some cardiovascular stuff that happens called heart rate variability. And that's where your heart rate will go up and then it will go down. It will go up and then down. And that happens throughout the night. And the more heart rate variability or HRV that you have, the healthier your heart is. And so, what we see with people who drink alcohol before bedtime, their heart rate variability goes way down, as do some of their housekeeping activities. So they don't wake refreshed. They often have problems with remembering things. And this is where, the brain puts things from short term into long term memory while you're sleeping. And some of those activities are curtailed. So your memory is compromised as well. I would anticipate that we'll find the same thing is true with marijuana, but I don't know. There may be studies already out there, um, but I just didn't have time to really dig for those.
Yeah.
Um,
Now with alcohol too,
mhm.
I've heard before that if you're waking up like 2 or 3 a.m., it can also be your liver is overreacting. So
Hmm.
from alcohol, is have you heard that?
You know, no, but I would think if your liver is waking you up, then you might need a meeting.
Because I mean, yeah, like yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I mean, the liver prioritizes the metabolism of alcohol. This is why I'm not a huge fan of alcohol, especially as a daily practice. The liver knows, like your body has wisdom. It knows that that's a toxin going in there, and it will preferentially metabolize alcohol before anything else. It steps to the front of the line because it thinks it's trying to kill you. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
metabolizing it quickly. Yeah, and then we've got these over the counter drugs that are they must be totally safe because they're over the counter. Things like diphenhydramine, which is the generic for Benadryl, all the sleep
Oh my
formulations.
gosh.
They're either going to have something like diphenhydramine in them, or they'll have like a doxylamine. Any of these, they're going to be in the same class, and these are really, really old school antihistamines. So these drugs have been around for a very, very long time. In fact, they're so safe, they're available without a prescription. However, now what we know is that, oh, wait, they're not so safe. The people who take them chronically, we pat ourselves on the back for telling people to take diphenhydramine instead of like Ambien to get to sleep. But now we know that, great. So all these people that have been taking diphenhydramine and doxylamine to sleep, it's related to dementia and cognitive decline. And so, yeah, we're seeing unprecedented levels of Alzheimer's and dementia in our senior patients. And yeah, it's definitely related. And so I try to get people off of all of these. It's not good for you. Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so crazy because yeah, I used to work with a lady that took a Benadryl every day and for her
mhm.
allergies. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you're right. It doesn't really matter what you're taking it for. If you're taking one of these old antihistamines that cause drowsiness, that means that it's crossing the blood-brain barrier. The newer ones, like Claritin or Zyrtec, they don't cross the blood-brain barrier. Therefore, it doesn't make you drowsy, but also it doesn't have that cognitive effect on the central nervous system. It doesn't suppress the central nervous system. So I would be much, much more accepting of my patient taking Zyrtec every day versus a Benadryl, because you do get those neurocognitive effects.
Mm.
Um, then we've got people who are not sleeping. Gosh, this is another one. Not sleeping because of pain.
Oh
Forgot
yeah.
to mention that one. Let's add that one to the list. So,
Hmm.
if they're not sleeping because of pain, um, then we've got folks who are taking like 600 or 800 milligrams of ibuprofen before they go to bed. And that's not great either. So that's really hard on your kidneys over time. So I don't necessarily want somebody taking NSAIDs to go to sleep because of pain. So we need to address the pain and find the root cause of, is this a musculoskeletal issue? Is it a a nerve issue. What's going on with the pain? So um, then we have now we get into the realm the realm of the prescriptions. We got prescription drugs like benzodiazepines, and these used to be the darlings of psychiatry. And also, we were once told, I remember teaching this, that, well, these drugs are Schedule Fives because they are so hard to abuse. They're like barely a controlled substance because they're really, really hard to abuse. But no, that was also not true. Um, Drugs like Valium, all the
Mm.
chemical cousins related to Valium, these are things like alprazolam, triazolam, diazepam, all the Pams and Lambs, right? All of these drugs, they are they are extremely habituating and highly abusable. And we have gotten so many people hooked on these drugs because they can't sleep now. They've been on them for years and now they can't sleep without them. And that also includes a class of drug called the benzo-like anxiolytics. These are drugs like Ambien, Sonata, okay? Those drugs, when they came out, this was like, oh, this is going to solve all the sleep problems. Well, yeah, great. So now we have people hooked on benzo-like anxiolytics, which are also controlled substances and highly abusable, and now they can't sleep without them. They were never supposed to be used for years and years and years. They are also related to cognition issues and dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's just it's really frustrating when I have people come in on this cocktail of medications that they've become habituated to, because nothing that I give them is ever going to feel like that benzodiazepine. And so the
Mm.
fact that they were started on it in the first place just makes me mad. um so, okay, I'll climb down off my soapbox. And now we can talk about the one prescription aid that I do use periodically in folks who have like really profound sleeping issues, or if I'm trying to get them off the benzos. Trazodone. Trazodone is an old school um, antidepressant, but it works in it's got some SSRI like qualities, but it also has another different mechanism. And so, anyway, it's used for very little these days because we have better things for depression. But it's used for sleep primarily. And then let's see, then we've got sleep hygiene. So if you go into a conventional office, they are going to give you a piece of paper, and it's going to have about 7 or 10 items on there, and they're going to be sleep hygiene things. And these are things that, like, anybody with serious sleep issues, they've already tried all of these. So this is like, go to bed at the same time, make sure your room is dark, make sure the
Cold.
temperature is right. Oh yeah, all of these things. Don't have the TV on in your room. All of these things that everybody knows, but this is your first appointment. And and so you get a sleep hygiene sheet, and out the door you go. Um, so yeah, I'm all for sleep hygiene. I just think that it's pretty commonly known information, and so people who really have problems, that they're already doing all of that. Um,
Right.
and then we have, if someone has apnea, if someone is having those episodes at night, like they're really doing damage to their brain, and so hopefully we are treating them with a CPAP machine. So I guess the last part of what we'll talk about tonight is natural solutions to sleep problems. And so, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I've got some barking going on here.
You're
Um,
good.
sorry. Yeah, so the first thing is, whether you're a super crunchy hippie mom, like, oh gosh. Yeah, hang on.
It's okay. They're fine. They're
Are
fine.
they okay?
It's
Is that
louder
not
than you
too
think.
bad? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So even if you're super crunchy hippie, you still got to go in and get that sleep study. If you are at risk for apnea, please, please, please get the sleep study. I know it feels really conventional, but please get it done. The
The
next,
long-term damage is
oh my goodness, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about blue light. So this is one of the I would call this functional sleep hygiene. All right. So, not everybody knows this, but blue light disrupts circadian rhythms. So, that's the rhythm that tells you that you need to get tired at night, um, or you need to wake up in the morning. And Ashley just like yawned her whole face off. And I can't. Oh my gosh, looking at you is just killing me. Okay. So yeah, this is literally like we're at her bedtime. So I'm gonna I'm gonna get through these. So blue light, this is a very specific wavelength of light that comes through devices. So this is your phone, your tablet, your laptop, all of those devices that we look at before bed, even your TV. Um,
Yeah.
but you want to make sure that if you have devices on in the evening, please flux them. Get fluxed. Yes. So it's f.lux. This is a free app. I recommend it all the time. Um, I've been recommending Flux apps for probably 8 or 9 years now. And so you just get that app on your phone, on your device, whatever it is, and it will ask you what time zone you're in. And based on
Mm,
that time zone, it will start to filter out all of the blue light. So it will mimic the lighting that's going on outside. That's ultimately what we're after. We want to mimic the lighting that's going on outside. So if you look as the sun goes down, the fluxed screen will start to get orange. In fact, I'm looking at a very orange screen right now. All the blue light is filtered out.
yeah. Well, and I now iPhone, and like I just turned on night mode on my
Hmm.
computer. Is that as strong as this Flux app
I
or
think Flex is better. I think
okay.
it more completely, not only does it get the blue light out more completely, but it also adds more oranges and reds. And that is very soothing. And so I also tell people to, if you've got CFLs and LEDs, and unfortunately those are like the only light bulbs we can get now. Did you know that it is illegal to get a regular freaking light bulb?
Incandescent?
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Anyway. All right. So can't get them. So blue light comes not only from all your devices, but it also comes from CFLs and from LED bulbs. Now, they are making warmer spectrum LEDs. And so I highly, highly recommend that you get those warmer temperature bulbs. I know it's super nice to have those really bright daytime lights in the daytime. That's fantastic. I have them in my kitchen because I need lots and lots of light in there. However, I also have night lighting. So I will turn off the kitchen lights and then I'll turn on the under cabinet lights. I will turn on some of the other like warmer temperature lights that I've got around the house so that everything gets excuse me, everything gets kind of orange at night. So also oh my gosh, what's in there? Um turn off so one final word about screens, turn them off 30 minutes before bedtime. If you have insomnia, this needs to extend to 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it's really and in fact um there was a study between oh this is kind of cool. So there was a study between ebooks and regular books. Now e-readers, that's not a whole ton of what would be considered blue light, right? But it is some light. So when they had people reading ebooks versus regular books, the people that read the ebooks, they had reduced evening sleepiness, they had reduced melatonin secretion, and they also had reduced morning alertness when compared to the study arm that was just reading a regular book.
That's
So
crazy.
imagine as people sit there scrolling endlessly with this blue light hitting their eyes right before bed, and then they sleep with their phone right next to their head. And so, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on that you're not even privy to that's causing problems with your sleep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so just turn it off, turn it all off. Also, if you are um, really trying to take your sleep habits up a notch, turn off the wireless router at night. It is
Yeah.
it is secreting EMFs. This is electromagnetic frequencies that can mess with your sleep. And some people are highly sensitive to these things. And so you've really got to shut them down, turn them off, get rid of them. And in
Yeah.
fact, you can put your router on a timer
Yeah.
and just shut it down at night.
And there's EMF devices too, right? That can help block
Yes,
anything that potentially could be coming in.
yeah, yeah, there are. I think it's probably easiest, one, don't sleep with your phone in your bedroom. That's just problems. But two, just put your wireless system on a timer, and have it off between 11 and 6. um, because then you don't have to go around putting all of your devices in a big, Faraday cage so that none of the waves are coming out. Like, it's just a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Um, so, oh, so here's one. How about, you've all heard sleeping cool, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, you know how many people have thyroid problems, right? And most
Yeah.
of them are hypothyroid. This means that they have thyroid levels that are too low. And people who have low thyroid need to sleep warm.
Interesting.
hmm You do not want these folks in a super cool room, because they're already having difficulty regulating their own temperature because their thyroid is not high enough to adequately or efficiently regulate that temperature. So, hypothyroid, sleep warm, otherwise, sleep cool. Um, we talked about the juice trick. Let's talk about some breathing tricks. There are two breathing
Yeah.
tricks that I like. So one thing you can do, Ashley's been practicing this while we've been on this call. You can you can force yawns. So just pretend to yawn, and in pretending to yawn, your body will take over and it will
I
yawn.
was not pretending.
I No, you were not pretending. Your brain was just like, it's time for bed. So, yeah, but if you force 3 or 4 big yawns right in a row. Okay, so that was a real one.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Right after.
those yawns will alert your brain to, "Hey, we're tired. We need to go to sleep." Um then the other breathing I like, I'm always harping about this, but 4-7-8 breathing, try
Hmm.
some rounds of that to calm yourself down at night. All right.
And I have some of my clients do that, and they
Mm.
have said it's done wonders for their sleep.
It is amazing. Yes, I'm a huge believer. So now let's talk about stuff I like. So, stuff I like to take before bed. And you'll notice that we have not talked about, and before I forget, stop the caffeine. I know we talked about it earlier, but I just want to say it again. You're having sleeping problems, stop the caffeine. You may have something going on where you are not metabolizing it properly. You may be aging into that time where you are not metabolizing it. You've got to stop it and see if that improves your sleep. Um, do an experiment. It's not forever. If you want to go back to having caffeine and having crummy sleep, then you always can, but at least figure out if that's the problem. Um,
Right. Yeah.
all right, so let's talk about stuff that I do like. Everything before now has been, no pills. It's just lifestyle, which I love.
Hmm.
But now I also like magnesium glycinate at night. I like 240 to 360 milligrams. Um, I like capsules better than tablets. And yeah, so
Why is that?
capsules, I think you get better absorption. Tablets
Okay.
are hard pressed. Um, uh, that's the the dosage form, it's more difficult for people who have compromised stomach acid and digestive abilities. It's more difficult for them to break down those tablets and release what's inside.
Okay.
So as a rule, I like capsules better. Um, and then, so mag is very sedating and very calming and relaxing. So
Mm-hmm.
I love mag before bed. And then phosphatidylserine. Okay, so we talked about waking up, and I said one of the reasons why you might be waking is because of the adrenaline and noradrenaline waking you up. But cortisol, you could be having your cortisol peak hit too early, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
cortisol is the wake up hormone. So if your cortisol peak hits at 4 a.m., guess what? You're getting up. Um, and it's your body's way of saying, "Hey, it is daytime. We are up. Like it's on." So one way that you can stop that cortisol peak from happening, but also remember we talked about the reverse cortisol curve.
Uh-huh.
If you have that going on, then phosphatidylserine helps to suppress cortisol.
Okay.
And once it does that, what happens to melatonin? If cortisol's low, it's high. So
Okay.
when you can suppress cortisol, then you can give melatonin room to work. And then finally, you can take exogenous melatonin. Like, your body is making it, but you can also add to that. I recommend people start with 1 milligram and then go up from there up to about a max of 10. 10 is really high. I like people in the probably 3 to 5 milligram sweet spot. But yeah, different people need different stuff.
Okay.
And that's
And
all I
now,
got.
on the phosphate later, I can't say it.
Phosphatidylserine. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, when would you say to take that? Like, if you said between if you're waking up in the middle of the night,
Yes. So I have people take this right before bed, and I have them work their way up to about 300 milligrams at night.
but this is if you're waking
hmm
up
Yep.
between that 2 and
It
4.
will still work. It will
Okay.
still work. Yes. It's got a half-life long enough that it will still work.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And with
Awesome.
that, I think I think you are ready to go to bed.
I am. I am going to do all the things.
Yeah.
I once my head hits that pillow, I am out.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I know.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
Me too.
And
All right. Yeah.
I honestly, if I get too hot, it wakes me up. Like I am
Yeah.
a cold sleeper. Like I
Yeah.
have to have a cold room.
Yeah, and most people are, but it's just astonishing how many people have health problems these days
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
have low thyroid. And so, yeah, that's got to be a consideration. We can't make these blanket statements anymore that, oh, most people need to sleep cold. Well, that used to
No.
be true, but now you can throw a rock and hit 5 people with low thyroid. So that's not necessarily the case anymore.
All right. Well, good to know. I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah.
I learned something new tonight,
Oh, I'm
Andrea.
so glad. Oh my gosh.
Ah,
Yeah.
all right, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, please rate us on whatever platform you are listening to on, and that would mean the most, or it would mean a lot to us. And what would mean the most to us is if you enjoyed this episode or any other of our episodes that you have listened to so far, if you share those with your friends and family, or even share it on your social media. That is one of the biggest compliments that we can receive. So if you have questions for us, please hit us up at askaapodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on our Instagrams, and all of that is linked in the show notes. So I hope that you have a wonderful night, since we are recording this at night. But whatever time of day you're listening to, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week, and have a great one.
Bye.
The content content provided in the AA podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical advice.